arts to theatre. Opera goers had a different attitude from today's audiences. It was even more of a social occasion then than now. It's very unlikely that a Viennese audience of the 1780s ever sat attentively throughout a performance as we expect to do. Seeing and being seen, establishing one's place in the court hierarchy, transacting business, even transacting sexual business in boxes with special blinds and curtains to ensure privacy. All this was as important as listening to the music. This print was published just a few months before the first night of Così. But Mozart had the skill to make them sit up and listen. He had an unerring instinct for the theatrical use of music. There's an aria, for example, in Così, just after the trio, where one of the girls grieves excessively over her lover's departure. Mozart makes her feelings very dramatic and yet at the same time essentially comic. And he does so by a simple device, by a parody of the kind of music used in earlier opera for entirely serious purposes. For his new opera, Mozart had received twice the normal fee, but it soon went when his wife fell ill, and he had to pay for treatment at this spa town of Baden, not far from Vienna. Constanza was looked after here by the man who ran the local church choir. In gratitude, and perhaps also in lieu of payment, Mozart later wrote him a short religious piece, Ave Verum Corpus, which is sung here in the same church and with the same size of choir as at its first performance. Baden today is proud of the Mozart connection. But then the more pressing question was whether Frau Mozart would be able to pay her next bill. Mozart's many letters to her here reveal that his debts were now a constant preoccupation. So how did Mozart get into this situation? It's been suggested that he was a compulsive gambler, especially at billiards, a game which he certainly enjoyed, or that he was excessively vain and spent far too much on clothes, or again that he and Constanza together lived far beyond their means, trying to keep up with a level of society to which Mozart aspired, but didn't belong. The truth is we simply don't know how he got through his money. But the more important point is that he was never in such trouble that he had to give up, for example, his servants, whose assistance, as a member of the middle classes at that time, he would have considered a basic necessity of life. Nor did he and his family ever have to go hungry. Indeed, he wasn't always in debt. And come to that, an artist who is, from time to time, in debt, is that such a very startling piece of news? The death of the Emperor Joseph in 1790 must have seemed a further blow to Mozart's hopes. In practice, the Emperor had done relatively little to encourage Mozart. In spite of his declared passion for music, we have no record of his ever asking for a piece by Mozart to be played in his private apartments, though he was admittedly an enthusiast for the operas. But with his death, the future seemed to hold even less enticing prospects. Joseph's successor was his brother, Leopold, who had done his duty by the House of Habsburg in siring 16 children. All court appointments, including Mozart's, were now at his disposal, and unlike his late brother, he made no claim to be a lover of music. Leopold was crowned Holy Roman Emperor at Frankfurt in October 1790. Mozart was not summoned to attend, but he thought it might be profitable to turn up anyway. Financially, the decision was wrong. As he wrote home, his performances were a triumph from the point of view of honor and glory, but a failure as far as money is concerned. It was opera which claimed Mozart's attention during the few remaining months of his life. And this time not court opera, but a different tradition with a different repertory. And in this new venture, he renewed an old acquaintance. When he'd been living with his family in Salzburg, they'd often seen performances by a visiting theatrical troupe, and they'd become friends with its leader, Emanuel Schikaneder. Schikaneder had recently built a theatre in a large tenement block in the suburbs of Vienna, the Freihaus, where he'd been given permission to present German light operas. He proposed to Mozart a musical extravaganza with its basis in magic and ritual, particularly the rituals of Freemasonry, mixed with earthy humor and with elements of pantomime. Schikaneder, like Mozart, had been initiated a Freemason. Schikaneder himself wrote the libretto of the magic flute, and he played the central role, that of Papageno, a professional bird catcher who even makes his clothes from feathers. These statues celebrating Papageno were put up in Vienna a few years after Mozart's death, so popular did the character become. Papageno was the common man who reacts humorously to the mysteries unfolding around him. And Mozart wrote for him popular songs as catchy as any of the music hall favorites of 100 years later.
Der Vogelfänger bin ich ja stets lustig, heißer Hopsasa. Ich Vogelfänger bin bekannt, bei alt und jung im ganzen Land. Weiß mit dem Locken umzugehen und mich als Pfeifen zu verstehen. Drum kann ich froh und lustig sein, denn alle Vögel sind ja mein. Der Vogelfänger bin ich ja stets lustig, heißer Hopsasa. Ich Vogelfänger bin bekannt, bei alt und jung im ganzen Land. Ein Netz für Mädchen möchte ich fing sie duzen weiß für mich. Dann sperrte ich sie bei mir ein und alle Mädchen wären mein. Wenn alle Mädchen wären mein, so tauschte ich per Zucker ein. Welchen mir am liebsten wär, der gäb ich gleich den Zucker her. hätt ich dann, wär sie mein Weib und ich ihr Mann. Sie schlief an meiner Seite ein, ich wiegte wie ein Kind sie ein.
The plot tells of a prince, armed with a magic flute to protect him from danger, and of his love for the daughter of the Queen of Night. The entire production was a kind of pantomime in the Viennese popular tradition. And if Papageno was Buttons, then the wicked stepmother was undoubtedly the Queen of Night. The part was originally sung by Constanze's sister, Josefa Hofer, and Mozart shows off his sister-in-law's coloratura technique, putting totally in the shade what had passed for virtuosity earlier in the century.